Are you seriously going to eat, you fat blibbity blabbity blob? I mean, it's something you might be like,
continual.
why would I want to start this?
Sensitive. She's so sensitive.
You are listening to the Tami Talks Unscripted Healing Podcast, where we share stories that are, you guessed it, unscripted.
That's the thing, this journey doesn't stop.
It doesn't really. Right? We have a general sense of the topic each episode, but really the whole point is just to show up and be authentic and let our inner child speak its truth. And I have continued to work through that story of constantly hearing, well, we don't want, got a hot dog on our hands. Yeah, guess what, Mr. Sabotaging, you do. So I'm so excited that you are here, and it is my hope that you hear yourself somewhere in the story so that way you can feel seen and heard as well. So let's start talking. Welcome back to the Tami Talks Unscripted Healing Podcast. I'm super excited again for today's episode, especially today's episode, but we'll get to that. First, just checking back with you guys, because our last episode was about validating your own story and thinking through your childhood experiences and where you might need to validate for your inner child on times that maybe you didn't feel seen or heard, and starting to think about how you can do that for your inner child. So hopefully you had some time to sit with that and gave your inner child a little love since last time we talked. But today, I'm super excited for my guest. This woman has, to say that she's probably helped change my life feels like an understatement, because she has literally held my hand through a really intense, tough year, personally and professionally. And so I'm super jazzed that she's here. But I'm just going to hop right in. So I feel like I need to drum roll that now because I do you justice, but
No, that was very sweet. Thank you.
So this is Andrea. Andrea and I met, actually it was a word of mouth. I was at a meeting, like a networking meeting with some ladies, and I don't even know if I mentioned that I was looking to rebrand, or I don't even know where I was in the process, but someone had mentioned your name and I was like, okay. So totally reached out, figuring this was a long shot, and had a little meeting at a coffee shop, a little date. And were you like a little blue dress that day? It was like so professional and so cute. And
I don't remember.
How do you not remember this?
I remember meeting you, but I can't remember what I did yesterday, let alone what I wore 2 years ago.
That's fair. I think I just remember being like, oh, like she's super cute. Well, and then we just like started small talking, and I felt like we could have probably talked all day, because it turns out we both had this like love for working out, and it was our outlet and all of these things. So like, okay, I can totally work with this lady. But then I was like, I had to wait because someone's in demand and has to help all these other people, which looking back was probably a blessing in disguise, because I was nowhere near ready. So yeah, that was crazy, because that was, we're thinking like fall of 2022.
Yeah, it was.
It had to have been.
It was. Oh, okay. Yeah, a year and a half ago. Yeah. It was at least a year ago, because I know I have a note that we officially started working together. I think it was a year coming up here soon. So yeah.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure you have it in a file. Like, can I be done with her already? Long enough.
No, it's a little celebratory note.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, but seriously, that was crazy. But yeah, so we started working together. Yeah, it would have been sometime around this time last year. Yeah. And so what I wanted to talk about on this episode was how our childhood wounds can get in the way of things that are incredibly important to us, that we're passionate about, that are dreams that we have, because that was so evident throughout the last year working with you. When my childhood wounds would creep up, it was something else. And God bless you for being the most patient, understanding woman. But what was interesting is we found out we actually had a lot of kind of things in common. It wasn't just our love for working out. So it made for some interesting conversations.
Oh, yeah. More than that. We're like the same person in a lot of senses. Yeah. No, you're not alone in that. Everyone goes through it. And you had the patience to go through it, which is, I think, something that separates you from everyone else. So when you're trying to feed your passion and figure it all out and build your brand, it's not going to come to you on the first go. It made me laugh, because you'd always apologize when we'd switch gears. And I'm like, no, this is how it works. It's okay.
Well, yeah, but I think I came in like, this was probably the first childhood wound that I was like, I didn't want to disappoint you. And Right.
And
it
that's
wasn't-
just like, what?
And then she did nothing, literally nothing to ever make me feel like I would do that. But that was my own stuff. And I was projecting it onto you. Like, I don't want to disappoint her. I don't want her to think that I'm lazy or I'm not motivated. Like, it was all of these stories, but that was all my own stuff.
Yeah, because none of that ever crossed my mind.
You never gave me that vibe, anything. It was always like the complete opposite of just very understanding and compassionate. But I definitely felt that. So yeah, when it was time to switch gears, it was like, oh, I'm wasting her time. Like, how annoying, what a burden. Like that was what my ego told me. So.
Yeah, well, maybe I should have done a better job of explaining the process to you too. Like, we're going to fall, we're going to get back up, and we're going to fall again, and we're going to get back up, and you're going to change your mind 100%, and that's okay.
Yeah. Well, I think I mentioned on the last episode of my Sagittarianism. I just made that word up too. And then I just like, okay, I want to do something, and I just go. Like, there's no plan. It's just all in. I'll figure this out as I go. And it was kind of that same thing. Well, what I had realized is I would have this really cool idea. We'd start digging into it. And then I would meet resistance in something. Like, something about it wasn't clicking or flowing, or like maybe I wasn't hearing back from somebody. Like, there was always something. And I think kind of what this healing journey has taught me is sometimes you have to sit with that. You know, instead of trying to force things, I knew enough to eventually sit back and be like, wait a second. Is there a reason for this? Is this fitting? Is this in alignment? You know, because we at one point, I think I talked about Nutrition for the Soul. That was a program I ran. I think I talked about that in the first episode, where it was a 12-week program specifically designed to help people heal their childhood wounds. And I had this really awesome idea of a certain population that I wanted to really target, that we're definitely experiencing a lot of that, but in a very like underlying way. And was all in on this idea to be able to use that program, but for the specific audience. And then something about it just wasn't sitting. And I had done all of this work, you know, researching, even talking to, you know, a personal trainer, like all of these things, and had to be okay with being like, this something about this isn't it anymore.
And you could just see that you see in your energy, like it wasn't, you didn't have that glow. You didn't have that, I really love this. It was the, okay, well, this works.
Yeah.
And it's not that anything was a bad idea. In fact, a lot of them were really good ideas. It just wasn't meeting your passion.
Right. Yeah. And I think I realized that I was trying to rush the process, and probably because I didn't want to waste her time, and I really wanted to get something out there and start helping people and doing what I love. But I recognized that it wasn't just about rushing the process of trying to rebrand and all of that kind of stuff. It was trying to rush my healing. And I talk about this all the time, is that you can't bypass your healing. You can't skip over the wounds. And that's what this taught me is I had done the demolition of my life, personally, professionally. Like, I tore down the walls. I did that work before I met you, and that was an experience in itself. But even coming to you is like, this is where I'm at. I'm stopping these 2 programs that I have run and loved and that were successful. I'm laying it all out. So I had kind of demoed that so I could start fresh, but I was trying to build too fast. And that's why the walls kept falling, because I wasn't addressing the childhood wounds I had along the way, which you got to witness.
Yeah. Well, your foundation was unstable, right? Yeah, and then the house was going to fall down. The house fell down a couple times, but we just, you know, we finally realized, okay, we need to do something else to build a more solid foundation.
Yeah.
And it was very obvious when it clicked.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And with everything too, because then we had like another program idea that, like, now finding a way to implement it into the coaching that I'm doing, just some of the outdoor experiences, because I love being outdoors, and there's so much healing about being outdoors. And it's like, why can't I do sessions outside with people? Like, who says it has to be in an office and, you know, being on a couch or whatever? Like, why can't we go for a hike and talk about their stories? And so that's a part of what we're doing now. So there was a purpose in that, you know, but again, it was putting all of the emphasis around that. Like, there was still parts that were missing. And so again, letting that kind of sit to the wayside, and then coming up with a completely different branding name and creating the logo. And we, the whole time, we're like, something isn't just right. It's just,
yeah. I'm like, I like it, but there's not really, I don't know. There's something missing.
Yeah.
And you probably hated me for it, but I was just like, try a few more, do a few more.
Yeah.
Let's do this. Let's try this.
Well, and but that's why I hired you. If I was able to make those decisions myself, I would have. But that also was a huge part. I think about this healing journey and stuff as being able to ask for help, because for so many years, reaching out to someone like you, I would never even thought of doing that, because I'm not worthy enough. I can't invest in myself like that. My dreams aren't big enough, cool enough, whatever enough. And so I wouldn't have even thought to do that. So I was proud of myself for even getting to the place where I was like, you know what? I am worthy of receiving help. And what I have definitely learned throughout this last year of going through this whole rebranding process is I want to be able to operate in my gifts, which is inner child work. But if I'm spending all of this time doing branding stuff or website stuff or videography stuff, I'm not operating my gifts. I can absolutely figure those things out, but the time and energy that I'm doing in those areas that aren't like fueling my soul and lighting me up, it's taking me away from the things that do. And so it's been so cool to be able to start operating in my gifts, but to see you operate like, oh, she's actually really good at her job. Like this is her area. Or like my web designer, same thing. My whole website, the first time I tried it was, oh my gosh. It actually got hacked at one point. I'm like, who would even hack little old me? But all of a sudden there was bagels and swim shorts on this website. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm done. But it was so hard. And that sat there for years before I finally reached out this last fall and said, I need help. These are the things I need help with. And started finally getting that into my head that allow people to operate in their gifts to support you so you can be in yours.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's one of the biggest hurdles that everyone faces. You have to get out of your own way. And there's many reasons why you're in your own way. Childhood wounds, right?
Let me list the ways.
Right? Financial reasons, time reasons. There's many things that contribute to that. It's not easy by any means, but once you can have that realization and remove all those barriers, or at least set them aside a little.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Look what you can build.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. It's been quite the process. So it was trying to rush it at first, but then it almost got to like deeper layers of my childhood wounds when all of a sudden Andrea gives me a homework assignment to like map out like what is the investment that you have made in yourself to be able to do this work. So I'm thinking of my undergrad degree and master's degree and my like all these certifications and trying to think of like all these things and like, what is my time worth? And so here my ego was like, yeah, what are you worth, Tami? And it totally hit my worthiness wound. And oh my gosh. So here's
I know. I was like, oh boy, what did I just do?
She had no idea what she was walking into.
You made her cry.
That's true. True story. But here's what happened. And this is what ego does. And this is, our protective parts. And I'll get into this. I think it's an upcoming episode about how our ego swoops in to try to protect. So my inner child's feeling triggered, right? About feeling worthy or not. And so my ego swoops in and is like, well, we don't want little Tam feeling that. So how about we just completely ignore this issue? How about we completely ignore the assignment? Like, ignorance is bliss. I went totally avoidant. I knew it was in the back of my head this whole time. You have a meeting with Andrea at 2:00 on Tuesday and she's expecting. So now I don't want to disappoint her, but yet I'm paralyzed in fear. And I mean, I'm not joking. Like this was,
and I'm clueless.
No idea that I'm just spiraling. And again, it was weeks that I was avoiding it. And it was obviously like this underlying stress and tension. But then when it came to like 2 hours before the meeting, it got super triggered and I started crying. And I actually, because I share a lot of the behind the scenes in my stories, I shared that and was like, this is what it looks like for your worthiness wound to be triggered. And I had to like feel my way through that of just, okay, this is, and the really cool part about that was I was no longer beating myself up for the fact that I had put that off. It wasn't that I was being lazy, that I was being avoidant. It was that my protective parts were trying to protect little Tam from feeling unworthy. But that's where, and I've been stuck in that for so long. Like, this is the time to address it. This is the time. And what was so cool about that is I had my good cry about it, and I kind of talked it through with people in my stories, just my imaginary friends on the other side of the screen. And I was like, I'm just going to go and tell her. I'm just going to be vulnerable and share where I'm at. Because I think we spend so much time and energy of trying to like make excuses or like shine up this turd of like something, like make it look better. I would have come up with a million excuses of why I didn't do this.
Well, there were so many aspects that you were placing zero value on, and there's numerous things that you check off when you're figuring out, hey, what am I worth? And I would say at least half the things that I brought up, you're like, oh, well, I don't know if there's any value there. I'm like, no, total value there.
Yeah.
Yeah. You taught me a lot too. You actually taught me two things through this. I learned about you specifically that if you push something off, it's because I'm triggering something.
Yeah.
So it told me, if you're not addressing something I ask you to do immediately, I need to take a step back, maybe break it down a little bit more and just talk it through a little bit, which is really true for anybody, right? So you taught me a valuable lesson in my business that, not that I would necessarily judge somebody and think that they're just slacking off, but okay, here's another reason why maybe they're not doing this. We need to dig a little deeper.
Yeah.
And the second thing you taught me is to check your stories before I meet with you, so I know what I'm in for.
Let's find Tami's mental status today. Is she going to be
What are we walking into?
emotionally stable or not?
Bring coffee.
Oh my gosh, that's so true. But what was so great about that, as I walk into the coffee shop, we're both at the little, coffee stand, and I made some joke about it. And then we sat down and I just kind of opened up about, this is where I'm at, and this is how I was feeling, and this is why. And by being honest and vulnerable, she was able to meet me with compassion. Because then you didn't have to spend time like, is she lying? Is she this? Because I'm making up all these excuses, and you're just like, well, that sounds like a bunch of excuses or a load of baloney. Well, I haven't said that in a long time.
That's a good one.
Yeah, a load of baloney.
Circa 1989.
Right? But I think that's, if we can learn anything, is the more just authentic and vulnerable we are, we open ourselves up for people to see who we really are and be able to have compassion and understanding. Because you approached that beautifully and handled it beautifully, even though I came at you like, hey, and we're able to share a story about like, hey, when I got started, and I was like, oh, you're human too. This isn't just me.
Oh yeah. The story I shared was my first client. I lowballed myself to death because I didn't feel that I was worth that.
Right.
I valued myself below what I should have done.
Yeah.
And where do you go from there?
Right.
It's a slow climb if you eventually realize it. And I did realize it, and I have changed things.
Yeah.
But are they still my client? Yeah. Are they still where they were? Yeah, because that was my fault, not theirs.
Right. Yeah. Well, and it's interesting too, because we do that because our inner child doesn't feel, or it's feeling triggered, right? And so those protective parts swoop in to like, well, you should just lowball yourself. But that triggers your inner child to be like, no, because I'm worthy. Like your inner child knows you're worthy. But it's all of that protection that gets in the way and just complicates things and makes mountains out of molehills, which also happened to us recently, which is hilarious because now like you know enough about me and my childhood wounds.
I'm just wondering where you're going with this one. I'm giving you an inquisitive look like, oh Lord, what mountain out of a molehill are we talking about?
Yeah. So I am a part of a year-long group coaching program. And
oh yeah.
Yeah, this was good. So you can think that you've healed and you've done a really great job with your healing work. And then once in a while you get triggered and you're like, oh wow, we're back here. Because it took me way back to some moments. But yes, so I have this group coaching, and it works beautifully. Like the programs and working with you have really meshed beautifully. And it does give us like me different elements to look at, different perspectives to look at, and they complement each other really well. So they were taking a look at like what I was offering and stuff too, and had some feedback and just another perspective. And I was like, oh, this would be great So my rational self thought like, oh, I'll send this to Andrea. I'll get her feedback too. But then all of a sudden, something about that triggered me. So I had sent it and I had already apologized in the email, I think, of.
Yeah.
Or in the text, I think. I said something like.
Well, you email. I don't remember if you texted when you emailed. Maybe you did, but you said something to the effect of, I hope you don't read too much into this, or alluding to that I'd
like
be
step on your toes or something along those lines.
That I would be hurt or mad.
Yeah.
And this is the part where we're the same person comes into play, because the spiral effect was ridiculous. Because now I'm like, oh,
wait.
I look at it, I'm like, I don't get it. What am I missing? What did I do?
Nothing. Literally
so
nothing.
So now I'm in panic mode. Like, oh, what happened?
So me being triggered, then triggered her, and it was like back and forth. But it was so silly because, again, my rational self knew like, oh, this is her work that she does. This is more input for us to look at and consider. Like, why wouldn't she see this as a helpful thing? But then somehow that people pleaser in me didn't want to upset her, didn't want to offend her, didn't want to step on her toes, all of that chatter. And so, yeah, I made a total mountain out of a mole because now I got her worried that she did something or would be mad about something or.
Well, like, and my silence didn't help it because so I think I read it. I was confused.
Yeah.
It was in the morning. I was like, I'm just going to go back and reread it later. The day got busy.
Let Tami get through her mood swing and then we'll check back.
No, I didn't even think that. I was just like, I just had stuff going on. And then the day got away from me. I think I
was like, oh shit. Because then the stories in my head are now going because I haven't heard back from her immediately. So I'm like, oh my gosh, she's going to fire me as a client. She hates me. What a bitch.
No, and then you send me this long text message. I'm like, oh, I just forgot to look. And then I went back again. I'm like, yeah, still missing it.
Yeah, but it was wild.
Mm-hmm.
I took what should have been a simple thing, a simple email to share ideas, turned into this whole massive thing. And that's what childhood wounds do.
Mm-hmm.
They will blow up the simplest of things if we would have just dealt with them head on, had the conversation, said what we wanted to say. But instead, we create all of these stories around it. And it was absolutely like fell into this. And so then we're like laughing about like, wow, look at us.
We just built a masterpiece here out of nothing.
We did. But luckily, we can laugh about it as well.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about that too, of just the people I've been so blessed to have found to work with over this last year. And because I almost need to like have people sign a waiver. Like if you're going to sign up to work with me, just here's what you're getting involved with. Because you're right. And I love that you took that away from working with me, is that, yeah, when people are avoiding something, it isn't generally because they're lazy or unmotivated. It is triggering. They might not even know that it's triggering something deeper. They have no idea why they're avoiding it, why they're procrastinating. They've been labeled as someone who procrastinates, and maybe they have that reputation, with their friends or their coworkers of like, oh, they're always putting this stuff off.
Mm-hmm.
It's bigger than that.
Mm-hmm.
And we owe ourselves to actually look at, so why am I procrastinating? What about this? And again, and sometimes even just with goals and dreams is we procrastinate on it because we don't necessarily feel worthy of the goal or dream. And so it's easier for your ego or protective parts to have you stay back and play small because that fear of failure, like, well, what if I actually try to do this and I fail?
Mm-hmm.
Your ego's like, nope, not doing that. That fear of rejection, that fear of failure, too big. So it's like, well, let's just not dream then. Let's stay small. Let's stay in this box. And that's what keeps so many people from just staying stuck. And that was me for so many years, but I needed people like you around me to continue to pour that belief in when my ego wanted to tell me that same thing of, are you really sure, Tami? Or, because I started getting in my head, the closer we got to like launching this rebrand, I was getting in my head about things. I was starting to like ask you a million questions, probably like, oh my God.
No.
The biggest mistake I ever made was giving this girl my phone number. But I was like not trusting my decisions anymore.
Yeah.
I was starting to.
You were second guessing yourself.
I was second guessing myself, and I was like outsourcing that sense of validation and knowing, like a true knowing. Like I know when things feel right and things feel in alignment, but I was starting to like, are you sure? What do you think? And yeah, so bless your heart.
Oh, you don't. Yes. Like I said, it's all part of the process. You actually were extremely easy to work with because you were willing to confront these things. You were willing to be honest. You were willing to be vulnerable. And it made the communication so clear to know where we needed to go.
Yeah.
So realistically, if you were somebody else who wasn't able to do that, this process probably would have been 2 more years. Because we've had to go back and forth because we didn't address those things. We would have gotten further down the line, realized it wasn't right, and had to go completely back to the beginning. I mean, really, we caught everything pretty early.
Yeah.
So, but that's because you were willing to face it. You were willing to go there and to just say, hey, help.
Well, and it's interesting too, going back to the whole like meeting resistance and allowing yourself to sit with things when they're just not flowing or moving. It happens in the other way too, is when something clicks and you go with the flow. And that's kind of what happened was I was having a conversation with Zoe, who you guys met, I think on the second episode. And I was kind of talking to her about what I wanted this podcast to be. And I don't like following rules. I don't like being told what to do, even if it's telling by myself. So like, I just wanted the podcast to be unscripted. And that's what I said. I'm like, I just want it to be unscripted. I just want to have this conversation we're just having a conversation. They're unscripted. And all of a sudden I was like, that word, like we both paused and we're like, unscripted. And then it was like, I think that's it. I think that's the name. And then it just, and then it felt like things from then on have moved pretty fast.
Well, exactly. You got to ride the wave too, like you said. And the other sense, you got to sit in things if you're not quite sure. Yeah. If it's there and you feel it, then you got to ride the wave and you got to keep going. Because how quickly did we bust out a whole lot of stuff?
Yeah. Yeah, it happened pretty quick there. I'm trying to think, like my head is still spinning, but yeah, it feels so good for it to finally be out there and to know the work that it went into it. And I'm not even, people will see the website or they'll see the video and that kind of thing. And you can see that kind of work, but the real work that went into that and just how much healing had to happen in order to feel worthy of this thing. Because that's what it all comes down to is, do you feel worthy of this goal that you have? Whether that's, starting a health journey, yeah, we want to look better, feel better and all of these things, but do you really feel worthy of it? So I think this applies in so many areas of our life and not just someone who's trying to build a new business or brand. Like it shows up everywhere, everywhere. So
yeah, big and small.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really, truly amazing how much you've helped me throughout this journey. And I know that the intent was, I'm going to come in and help you build this business, this brand. But part of what I do is having to immerse myself in whoever it is I'm working with, their industry, because obviously I can't help them grow it if I don't truly understand it. Well, we frequently would use me as an example. And there were many moments I left and I'm like, wow.
Did I just get a therapy session during my branding session for Tami?
You got some work to do.
Oh no.
But I mean, it was all in a good way because you don't know what you don't know until somebody points it out to you, or you just kind of have that light bulb moment. And there would be so many things even if it was just like our small talk, which honestly, our small talk was like 3/4 of our meetings, but whatever, it's okay. But it was that small talk that there would be things that I would be telling you about what happened over the weekend or things with the family. And there was always little lessons in there, whether we've like really kind of addressed it immediately or if it was just more subtle and I just kind of took it away. But there was so much. And I would tell, like I've told one of my friends, her name is also Tami. She's one of my best friends. And I would tell her and she's like, you got to hang on to this girl. She's like doing wonders for you.
I like her. I like her name and I like her. Oh.
Yeah. So, I mean, kudos to you because I think your work shines through whether you're working or not. You're just a gifted, kind, caring person that wants to help people. And that's amazing.
I do. Thank you for that. Yeah, that's why I just love having conversations is because there's something in it for everyone. Like there's always a lesson. And I think, kind of a takeaway from today as well is just, how is this happening for me? Like, I love that scene. And I think when you make that shift because I could have looked at so much of, our work together, like, oh, like, why is this happening? Like, why is this happening to me? Like, why, just kept asking that. Well, that just, again, that's how ego keeps you stuck in this story. There's no change, there's no growth. But when you're asking, like, how is this happening for me? What am I supposed to learn out of this? What am I supposed to get out of this? And again, applying that to every area of your life, like, then you can use that. You can take that with something. And so I think when I'm hearing people's stories, I'm always thinking, how did that happen for them? What was the lesson in that? And then that's when you start connecting those dots. And it's like, like a really simple, casual conversation turns into like, whoa, damn. Like,
yeah. When you could truly live with that statement of changing the 2 to a 4. I mean, I put it up in my office. It's a big poster in my office. Yeah. It is not necessarily happening to you. It's happening for you.
Yeah.
When you can see that, it changes everything.
It really does. It's a totally different perspective shift. But there was one thing I want to, as your guys' takeaway, is what you said. And I think it deserves extra highlighting, is when you find yourself avoiding something, procrastinating on something, sit with that. Or if you notice someone else, maybe they're not answering your text, or maybe they're not getting that project done. Again, instead of getting mad, instead of lashing out, instead of creating stories in your own head of like, why didn't they text me back? You never know what someone else is going through and what that might be triggering for them. It may have, 9 times out of 10 has nothing to do with you. And so I encourage you to sit with that of, okay, like maybe this is triggering something in them. Maybe there's another way to approach this. I just think that that's huge, because that truly was what it was for me. So.
Well, for the record, I never thought that you were lazy or just didn't want to do it.
Okay. Well, thank you. I certainly felt that way at times, but, and change the 2 to 4, 2 to 4. How is this happening to me? How is this happening for me? There you go. Your life lesson for today. All right. Well, thank you, Andrea. It has been a joy.
Thank you, Tami.
Me and little Tam Tam owe you lots. So
I appreciate you inviting me on here.
Next time we should go paddleboarding.
Okay.
We're totally doing that this summer.
Okay.
Okay. That is it for today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And remember, change a 2 to 4 and have an awesome day. And we're back. And the reason why is actually kind of hilarious, because Andrea is all about branding and marketing, and I failed to mention her business and really what she does. So I'm going to give her this opportunity to share a little bit about, maybe even a little bit of your story and how you started your company, but and also what you do.
Yeah. Oh, this just makes me laugh. It doesn't reflect well on me either, where we're leaving out all of the marketing.
Well, you were making it about me because this was my thing, but it was really also an opportunity to showcase your amazingness.
It's okay. We can laugh at ourselves, so this is good.
Yeah.
Yes. So I own Brandhowse, which is a marketing firm for small businesses only. I primarily work with in businesses in the events, hospitality, kind of fitness arena. I do branch out a little bit outside of that, but that's mostly where it is. I created it in 2019, and actually it was a situation where I was working for a company, and it was a victim of workplace abuse. I mean, honestly, I was ripped to shreds, but as hard as that was my kick in the pants to get out of there and go do my own thing. I finally hit a fed up point, but I knew I loved marketing and branding. And I was actually just running into, roadblocks for finding resources for small businesses, which is why I chose that avenue. Bigger agencies were leaning towards big companies. I get it.
Yeah.
So that's why I chose it. But yeah, I just hit that point and I'm like, I'm going to do it. And, I had some friends saying, time, let's go.
Yeah.
You're falling apart. So yeah, I just kind of left. I had a contract that was full-time to start. So, honestly, it was a pretty easy transition for me. It wasn't, it was risky, but it wasn't like it was a complete jump off. But then that contract ended in March of 2020, and we all know what happened then. So I was like, yeah, go build a business right when the pandemic starts. And you know what? Focus on hospitality, because they're not an industry that's being affected by this.
I did not know this.
And so, yeah, Well, I probably can't say on here what I said and what I did. It was really, but no, I really was second guessing myself. But I went through many of the things that you went through in this whole, and I kind of was like, okay, the world's really weird right now. Not a time to make any changes. You need to just kind of sit in this and sit in it. I mean, I sat in it until we all came out of our holes.
Yeah.
But then the doors opened, and let me tell you, the floodgates opened.
Yeah.
And it's been wonderful ever since. And I absolutely love what I do because I get to help people achieve their dreams. And it's so rewarding to be able to share things that I know to make that happen.
Maybe we need to partner up. I'll help them heal their childhood wounds so they can actually believe in their dreams and like save you the process of healing as they...
Yes. And
you're going to come up on some massive childhood wounds as we're branding. So
here's your resource. I mean, well, that's kind of what the whole business is all about. I'm the contractor. I bring in everything that they need. You're another one of those tools.
Yeah. But you're also crazy intuitive and just know that about people. And that was such a gift that you gave me, was to know that. So, but yeah, that's amazing. And I love, this is also, I think for a lot of people too, is you get to this point, and I remember seeing the quote of the universe saying like, I had to make you uncomfortable, otherwise you never would have moved. Mm-hmm. That was the same thing when I left the big healthcare organization that I worked for 7-8 years, to just take a leap, not having any plan. Like, at least you had a plan. I had nothing. I was like, I'm just out, because it was so uncomfortable. They were putting decisions and things on me that did not feel good. And I had to leave. And I think about how often we could actually look at our current situations before everything completely collapses and we completely lose ourselves. Like, there was plenty of warning signs and things like that leading up to that, I'm sure.
Oh yeah. I mean, I have people flat out tell me, you are not yourself. You are broken. And I'm like, I'm fine.
Go, this is what I do, and this pays the bills, and this is what I should do.
Because it's scary.
Yeah.
You don't want to take the risk. But I knew deep down.
It's that false sense of safety. Like, I'm safe in this stable job and thing, even though I'm being treated poorly. But that's just it, is I feel like we're getting all of these nudges and all of these signs that we just keep ignoring because this is what we should do. But when you finally take that leap, you're right, the door's open. It's like the universe is like, finally. And I think I even wrote that on my website. I think of like, just wait, when you commit to this journey, your inner child is going to flood you with gifts, and they are just it's going to be amazing. But you have to let the walls come down, and you have to get uncomfortable first to finally say, no, I do not deserve to be treated like this. I deserve better. All comes back to worthiness.
Right.
And you have built an amazing business from that. So look at you.
It's been fun. I love every minute of it.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad we came back around, and because I never heard that full story. So
no, I thought I've shared that with you.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. Well, awesome. So seriously, if you are looking to start anything, or just even like getting ideas flowing, like to build something, to get something out there, man, I mean, don't take too much of her time, because I take up plenty of it, and I don't want. But truly, you have.
Oh, so now it's coming out. I don't want to share. Okay.
That's why I did. I don't want people to really find you, because then you're less accessible to me. Oh my gosh. Oh, too funny. But yes, again, thank you so much. So now you've got a little bit more insight into her and the journey that she's been on to be able to help people like me. And she truly did help me bring my dream to reality. So thank you. All right. Officially signing off. I think we got everything this time. All right. Bye.
Tami Talks Unscripted Healing is produced by Mortarbox Media. Video, audio, and editing by me, Duke Adams. To learn how we can bring your podcast idea to life, or how we can make your current show even better, visit mortarboxmedia.com.